down our investment in wastewater, because we can't be spending millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars as we are right now trying to build capacity if you're just going to pick it out whenever you want. We're hoping actually to be in a position to negotiate with that. It's complex, but I'll have more as the months move forward. But no, sir, I do not have a specific Sunrise Gateway project update. I'll make sure I get an update and prepare next month for that.
That'd be great, because last time, a little while ago, I checked in. They were just kind of getting it together to start the whole planning process. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest planning processes we're going to have in this county for economic development. So yeah, if you could just see where they're at with that, that would be great for September. For me, the Clackamas industrial area there, right off of 205 and 212, 224, is our biggest chunk of industrial businesses, and we got to keep it going. Yeah.
If I could add one thing, I don't know if any of you have followed the news, but you heard about this bill trying to promote the development of chips for the semiconductor industry.
Right.
And they've identified some work that we've done actually in the availability of large industrial lots to serve that need, and the region is lacking in that, 500 acres and above. So I just thought it was kind of apropos in the sense that, we've been on that and been pushing that for a good 12 years since I've been here, and it's front and center right now as to a need in the region for, to maybe keep production here in Oregon versus having to go abroad, or not abroad per se, but outside of Oregon.
That's great, because it was also on my list view with the new CHIPS initiative. So we're having a mind meld here. And so we are being looked at, and I know that the land sites, when they're even talking about 50 acres, is tough, but that would be good if they pay more attention to us with some of that initiative. So any other questions for Paul before he takes off?
Yeah, quick, if I may. Since you mentioned the courthouse, I want to bring up the selected contractors did make a presentation to the neighborhood association a couple weeks ago. We had about 20 neighbors there. I'm the land use chair for the neighborhood that this is going to be going into, and pretty good response. I think they've got a lot of good ideas, and she would like to see that happen. The other thing was that also probably 3 weeks ago now, I was invited to go down because I'm on the West Advisory Committee. There was the first ever water reuse summit held down in Eugene, and pretty fascinating. I think that this is an important issue that maybe we could find some time to discuss about the economic impacts of reusing water to as an economic strategy. So that's all I wanted to say.
Laura, I think, was next.
Yeah, Paul, real quick. So when we talk about this 350 acres that Metro proposes to pluck out of our area, what kind of boundary restrictions or gap will point out, and then we still have opportunity, if they do take it out, we still have opportunity to expand somewhat into that area? Where exactly proximity wise is that parcel, and how detrimental will that be to blocking the future expansions?
Well, thank you, Laura, for the question. We don't exactly know. And as you know, they made a proposal to or a presentation, that is, to the North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee here 3-4 months ago. And they also made another one recently as well. And what they've said in each of those is that Happy Valley was, just perfectly fine with this, it seemed, as I recall. And so I called up the mayor, Mayor Ellis of Happy Valley. And Laura, this gets to your question. I said, hey, I heard you guys are totally okay with this land swap thing. He says, whoa, no. We had a big if there. And the big if for Happy Valley is that if the land they brought was to the farthest east on the edge, we would be okay, but we'd want to really see what that was in particular. So the other thing that occurred to me in conversations with, some folks, including one of our Metro councilors, Christine Lewis, was that it dawned on me that there's a lot of new Metro councilors on the council today. There's not much anyone there, I think, that has been there a long time. And Shirley Craddock, Councilor Shirley Craddock she's termed out at the end of this year. So there's no one there with any memory. And what I had to share with them is that there's been a process, by the way, for the last 20 some odd years that I've witnessed, 25 years that I've witnessed, when you go about your land use needs, you usually identify that you've got a need or you don't have a need. And so, anyhow, they're, I won't say tweaking the process, but I think the process is different to them, and they feel that everything is just fine. So I heard yesterday that they might have some lands identified. They've indicated they want to put them on the edge of the growth boundary, so they're not, basically pockets or islands within the Damascus area. So that's what I know today. But I have brought it up to the commission, and we said, well, I think we take the position of, well, not so fast. If they're going to take this, and we're investing in that area for capacity, there's got to be a negotiation as to what's in it for Clackamas County that can make up the difference, or something that assures that we get a fair shake out of this. It's not just a take.
Right. I think that's key. And if you're going to help 350 acres of Tiger economic development, then what's up for us, Yeah. Laura, you okay yet there? Any more questions? Okay. Anybody else for?
Oh, I always have questions, but I'll let Paul go with that. Yeah. It's a complex, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to dive in. And again, we're hoping the commission, I think, is going to make a much stronger case here pretty soon as to the involvement. But as we know, the clock's in a click here for another 3 months, I think, where they're doing their public processes. And then we'll be seeing which properties are proposed to be taken out. And then we'll know more.
And Laura, you got that covered. Anybody else? Okay, well, good. Thank you, Commissioner Savis.
Okay, thank you
as
all.
Always.
See you next month.
Thanks for being with us every month.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now I saw her. Oh, there's Victoria. Okay, Victoria, it's up next to talk about the Arch Bridge in Oregon City.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Victoria Meinig. I'm the Economic Development Officer for the Business Recovery Center for the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. And so thank you guys for having me. Yeah, so it's the 100-year anniversary of the Arch Bridge ceremony. It's going to be Saturday, October 1st. The ceremony will be from 9 to 1. And then, but the bridge closure will actually happen from 7 a.m. in the morning until 3. How the event is going to go for the day is beginning at 9. There will be music. There will be food carts on both sides of the bridge. At 11 o'clock, we'll begin the ceremony, and it's a 3-part ceremony. The first piece will be the giving of gifts. It's going to be gifts from Oregon City, West Linn, and the Grand Ronde tribe. And then they're going to reenact a wedding that happened on the bridge originally when the bridge happened. And then the end of the ceremony will be the art installation, which is 3 pieces of art being done by 3 different artists, one from Oregon City, one from West Linn, and one representing the Grand Ronde tribe. Excuse me, my brain is not connecting there. And then everything should be wrapped up with music and food at the end of that, and then all done by 1. The opening won't happen until 3, of course, because by the time you get stages and everything down and out of the way, it takes a little bit of time. I do know we had a question about where things were going to close at. So it's pretty simple. On the Westland side, the only piece of road that will be closed is Mill Street, and that's right before the bridge. ODOT is going to put signs and so forth, letting people know that the bridge is closed much prior to that, so that they don't take that turn initially. And again, from 7 a.m. to 3, so it will reroute them either up to the hills or they'll have to go back to 205. And then on the Oregon City side, the only thing that will be closed is 7th Street from Railroad to Main. The turnoff to go onto the Arch Bridge, of course, will be closed. There will be a abandoned stage, so no one will want to go there. And then we'll have directional people serving them to go off of either Railroad or to go all the way up 99 and around. But they'll also have access to 10th, since 10th is not going to be closed. And I think that's about it. Does anybody have any questions about that celebration?
The date again? Is it October 1st, did you say?
October 1st.
Yes, okay. Questions? Anybody? Well, I'll give a little anecdotal on the Arch Bridge. When I was working on the Main Street project in the mid-2000s or whatever they call it, the businesses were telling me as a consultant that shutting the bridge down really was going to hurt them for what, 2-3 years or whatever to renovate. And so I said, if you talk to ODOT about, you know, trying to get some lemonade out of the lemon, and they did. And I said, one of the things in other cities is to celebrate construction because it is what it is, and get little hard hats for the kids and stuff. Well, they did that and showed incremental progress. But they went to ODOT and they had a very serious discussion about we need some help. And I said, how about changing Main Street back to 2-way? And they did. And then they also got a grant, Oregon City, for their streetscapes. So they made some lemonade out of the lemon, and now it's a beautiful bridge, and we got a nice Main Street in Oregon City. So it'll be fun to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hope you all can join us. That'll be great.
Yeah.
I think that was it. And then Karina mentioned just an update on our Business Recovery Center. We are getting started to do our grants as well. We're going to be covering Gladstone, Oregon City, Beaver Creek, Canby, Malala, Malino, Colton, and Estacada. So it's 2 hamlets and 6 cities. So we're getting excited to get that out. Being in a rural area is going to take us a little bit more time to do outreach. As you know, our goal is to reach the underserved population. Currently, we have 3 languages, possibly 4, that we'll be going out with. So English, Spanish, Russian, and possibly Korean. So we're pretty excited about that. Our target zone at this point, we don't have the QCTs, the census tracts, qualified census tracts in our area. So our area of target is hospitality, travel, tourism, gyms, and dry cleaners. So we're pretty ecstatic about that. So a lot more coming on that front. A huge thank you to Laura for dipping our toes into this crazy mess. It's a wild ride, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm pretty excited about what we get to do for all of our cities. So any questions on that?
Victoria or Laura, question on timing. I know that we were re-upping a couple times here with the recovery centers. How much gas do we have in the tank to go? Is it another 6 months or a year or 2 years with funding from outside?
Well, with Clackamas County funding, that's over. But with the ARPA funding, we hope to be able to stretch it another 22 months. So cross your fingers. It will depend on the demand and what the businesses actually need.
Yeah.
I
And
saw hand
John,
up.
so part 2 to that real quick. So yeah, so we're funded clear to June of 2024 for our pool of funds. But if the Business Recovery Center technical supportive services aren't needed by the businesses, then we have to shorten that and then convert those funds to additional grants, which we're already looking at as a consideration. And our grant go live date is September 7th. So we have $850,000 that we're granting for Clackamas region and our service area and Sandy Mount Hood service area. Yep.
Questions for Victoria or Laura on that?
excuse me, yeah, Victoria, this group knows how passionate I am about the condition of our schools and so on. I thought you might want to just give a quick synopsis of what we are all missing right now at the GMOC this morning.
Yes, I am multitasking, trying to hold our Good Morning Oregon City, which you are all welcome anytime on Wednesday, 7:30 to 9. We are at the beautiful new Gardner Middle School, and we're having our first introduction to the new superintendent, Dale Spitzer. There we go, Spitzer. Uh, so yes, so I'm trying to make haste, make time. So, but you're all welcome, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous building. If you have not been in this building, I would invite you to come tour this gorgeous center. It's tax dollars well spent.
Tell us more about that program. What
So-
what is it you do?
So every Wednesday, every week, we have what's called Good Morning Oregon City. It's our networking event for our Chamber of Commerce. And we go to different locations every week and highlight a chamber member. And so this week we are at the it's for the Oregon City School District, but again, we're at the beautiful Gardner Middle School.
Nice, nice.
So you're welcome anytime to come. I'd love to see you.
Any other questions on these programs? No?
Cindy, just one quick question for Victoria and Laura. If I'm understanding it right, for Gladstone, you're both serving Gladstone, but the different zip codes. Is that correct? Because there's 2 Gladstone zip codes.
Yeah, I've got the 97267, I believe, and she's got the other one.
No, you have 027.
Oh, it's switched.
So yeah,
Okay.
the primary zip code for Gladstone is 97027, and the 267 is actually considered unincorporated Oak Grove and Jennings Lodge.
Okay,
So
thanks for the
those are
clarification.
unincorporated. Yeah, so we have 027 for Oregon City.
Oh, I tell you, too many zip codes.
That's a lot.
So appreciate the partnership. Thank you for that clarification.
Mm.
That's it.
Okay, Victoria, thanks for all your good updates and your good work. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Next on the agenda is discussion of just things going on in economic development in the area. We want to talk to you specifically about some upcoming meetings, but Cindy, do you have any other overall things you want to update as far as where we're at with anything?
The only thing I might say that you may be wondering about is we are putting together the recruitment for the economic development leadership position at the county. And we are working through our HR department on it. As you might have noticed, we have quite a few openings at the county at this time. And so it's been a process, but we're hoping to see something come out in the next couple of months, hopefully on the earlier end of that. But that's where we are internally, organizational wise, for the EDC. And I think the other thing to talk through today, Chair Lamont, if you think this is a good time to do it, would be the list of agenda topics that you all have entertained this year, and think about firming up everything for September and October. If there's any last minute items or presentations or discussions that you want to have, you have 2 more meetings for the end of this year. And then Karina was so kind as also to include our roster for membership. And so we want to think about recruiting for new members. So those were the 3 things that we kind of had on our mind for today. Eileen and Karina, is there anything else from staff that you wanted to share?
No, I think that's it for me. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Eileen, you're good? All right, that's us.
Great. So on that subject, but before we get there, Cindy, can you just, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but when Paul said we're cutting budget in order to get money for the courthouse, is there still some good feeling that we're going to have some money into economic development for staffing? That's one of the key things that I get concerned about. I know they're going to go through the couch and look for extra change to keep it going, but obviously if we're recruiting for a leadership position, there's money there hopefully to fund it, but are we okay?
Thank you for the question. Certainly those conversations are happening, as Commissioner Savas mentioned. I will say the distinction, now cuts could happen anywhere. That is certainly the purview of the county leadership. For economic development, we are funded by video poker dollars. So lottery dollars specifically dedicated to the county for economic development. That says at the board's discretion on how they choose to deploy those dollars. As compared to general fund dollars, which impact all the other operations, not all of them, but the majority of the operations at the county. So those discussions are certainly happening. I don't have anything specific to share. We are definitely engaged in those and teeing up our work plan as to here's, the return on investment for the lottery dollars and having those conversations with the board at this time.
Some of the lottery dollars do go to tourism as well, right? To the tourism staff.
Well, there's an allocation that comes to the county from the state, about $2 million or so in lottery revenues. And then those are parsed out by the county administration with the assistance of the Board of County Commissioners. So a portion of that, mostly for tourism, it goes through the TRT or transit room tax for their funding.
Okay.
So not necessarily lottery dollars per se for tourism, different funding streams for their programs.
Well, let's pick up on the stream about, and especially since we have Stacia here today, on what to do for September and October. And one of the thoughts we had in executive committee was to try and get a really nice event together for economic development in the county, like we did about a year ago or 2 years ago. I think I was chair back then. Oh, Laura?
John, before we get off the subject of what Cindy just talked about, may I ask a question for clarity?
Sure.
Okay. So Cindy, what with the county ARPA dollars, I know that $2 million was recently assigned to Ant Farm for supportive services. How much ARPA money, and it might be Eileen too that has an understanding of this, how much of the ARPA business recovery money is left? And has that been assigned to any special projects yet?
Great question, Laura. I do not have those numbers in front of me right now. We can certainly follow up on the ARPA funds. Eileen, do you have any information that you can share on that front?
I'm not aware that there has been any reallocation of that money. So the $4 million that was originally allocated for business assistance has gone back into the kind of the general pot. And I've not heard any discussion at this point, what's going to happen with that money. So the project that you mentioned, Laura, what project was that?
The article I read from the county was that about $2 million was granted to Ant Farm. They're based out of Sandy and they do supportive services in the community. And I think it was to invest in small service providers, like other nonprofits for delivering services to the community. But it wasn't very detailed. So I just, wasn't sure if that was out of the original 4 million intended for business or if that was a separate $2 million pool.
It's a separate pool of 4 million that's allocated for community-based organizations. And so that must be what that allocation was. Okay. But that's a good point. And we will look into that and get back to you.
Great. That ARPA funding is a moving target right now. So any update is great. So, okay, thank you. So here's what we need to do. So September and October, we had just some ballpark ideas on our list, which is the third attachment that you have on your email. And so the executive committee is kicking around that because of the nature of the Blue Heron site, the Grand Ronds project, and the North End site, the landfill redevelopment by Summit, that there's such scale that why not have a presentation to the EDC about them? But now we're thinking it might be bigger and better to do it in the evening like we did, I think, Cindy, 2 years ago when I was chair. We had an economic development night or kind of outreach and really bring in 4, 5, 6, 7 other economic development groups as co-sponsors. And it might be just wine and cheese. We don't know yet. We've got to find the venue and we've got to, nail that down. But it would be something like EDC, the Business Alliance, North Clackamas Chamber, Oregon City Chamber, Oregon City Business Alliance, any other group that would be there to really kind of highlight our groups, get them back in the spotlight. And then these two big projects would be given time, plenty of time to present where they're at with their development process and questions and answers. And I think some of you made it to that event 2 years ago, and it was really a good networking thing and a good exposure for the groups. So Stacia, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's one of the thoughts was that we'd reach out through the county to you and to North End and see if you'd be willing to do that, if that makes sense for your group.
Yeah, we certainly would be willing. I think, we had hoped to be a little bit further along in our master planning process, but we're probably a month behind where we intended to be. So, I mean, we'll have much more information to share probably in the October timeframe, but we certainly, are more than willing to make a presentation, make ourselves available in September as well.
Great. And I think if it's really, as we've talked with the committee, economic development central of what are we doing and taxes and bringing people in and tourism, the things you heard this morning from Victoria as well, that it would be really good for us to really have insight into that, but also to kind of shed some light more onto what we're doing. So Cindy, I'm thinking out loud here, and others please chime in, that maybe it's October we do that event instead of a morning meeting. We do it in some evening when everybody can do it. I think we got that settled with the executive committee as an approach. And then September would still be left open. And one of the thoughts was I'm looking at our short-term rental policy update as an idea. I'm getting back to an update on the Sunrise Corridor, maybe from Jamie Stasny, and just what is it, where are we going with it, that kind of thing.
Don't we have September? I think we have Bridget down for Future Ready Oregon. Is that right?
Well, that's the question. I'm just wondering about something that's going to be more economic development focused, and she could be on the agenda as well. I mean, ideas. I mean, we're brainstorming right now to get the last part of the calendar nailed down. Laura.
So John, since Paul just alluded to the conversation about Metro and that 350 acres, if they are starting those dialogues, if there's an update, I'd love to be able to keep a spot on the agenda. It would probably be as late as October, I would imagine, for that. But I think because that does tie definitely into our economic development or stunting it, I think that would be something that would be relevant for October, should he be ready. Well,
and I think it's being updated on these things, even if it's a 5-minute overview, just to keep us going so that we're on the case with this new stuff that pops up.
Yeah,
I agree with Laura that I don't want to wait until they have made their decision and then try to negotiate what we're getting out of it. I'd like to be involved. I'd like to be at the table when they're doing that.
And Cindy, you could guide us on this, but we could, if needed, be pulled in front of the the county commission if they need backup from the EDC to say, hey, we don't think this makes sense, or we want to know more, and push it out, that kind of thing.
I appreciate the interest, and certainly that is, we actually timely, because we just had a meeting yesterday, internal meeting, to talk about employment lands and our response and how we have this conversation with the commissioners and position the county around this topic. So certainly timely, the EDC was brought up in that meeting as a body for feedback. And so you guys are right in sync. This is great. So I think definitely talking to Jamie and the timing of when that could come back and that engagement to have the EDC be forward thinking in that process and not as reactive. I think that would be certainly appreciated by the commissioners.
So right now, I just took 4 notes. So the Metro urban growth boundary discussion we had with Paul and whoever, Cindy, Paul, or whoever's the appropriate person to give us an update. Bridget's update on what they're doing. Short-term rentals, if that's appropriate, Cindy, I know there's a lot of work that'd be done, and I know you're starting to kind of collect outreach and all that, but if that needs to be an update, just maybe from you on what's that meaning, or we can postpone it till 2023.
I think timing on short-term rentals might be better suited for next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next one would then be the Sunrise, and have Jamie Stasny, our development transportation manager, come in and tell us what it's all about. I mean, if you go onto the website, it's pretty detailed about the overview of what they're doing, but it's really what is the status right now and how it affects us. And I think, Cindy, if we do that, and if you can ask Jamie to put a little bit of a spin, and maybe you helping her do that on what it means. It's not just a transportation deal. It's how do we keep all that industrial area going, and how do we, add more industrial and businesses and tech and stuff out there. So that'd be great.
Certainly.
Okay, so really
would-
three things, UGB, Bridget, and Sunrise is kind of agenda items for September. And then October would be the evening economic development event with Grand Ronde and Summit coming in and explaining their projects.
So I think a couple of things, and I would love to get feedback from the rest of the EDC on kind of this suggestion on how to close out this year. I will say, just from the county's perspective, specific to the North End and to the Blue Heron site, to those projects, we are very sensitive as county staff on how we position ourselves in that process, because they're in the city of Oregon City. There's certainly initiative and the project teams that are pulling all of this information together. So as far as, you know, advocacy or anything like that currently, that would be something we would want to take pause on from the EDC. Information only at this time would be probably the most appropriate approach. And I think in talking with the executive committee, that's why we didn't necessarily think it would be appropriate to host a specific forum on X project, right? Whatever that would be, because there's so many different players that are involved in each of these projects. So more of an informational approach was the thought, but I would really love to hear from the rest of the EDC two things. One, your thoughts on an in-person event in October, and kind of what John was saying, here's the topics that we're thinking, have it be kind of a business appreciation or recruitment event similar to what we did in 2019. Would love to get your feedback on that. And then also on making sure that we're all in alignment on those topics to close out the year.
Well, I think it's a great idea. I think we're poised for a physical meeting. I think the idea of inviting all of the regional chambers and business associations is an excellent idea. Why not showcase what they're doing as well and see how we can all cooperate? At the OCBA meeting yesterday, I also met Lisbeth Howe, is that her name? She's the president of the Happy Valley Business Association. So that's kind of new on our radar. But yeah, I think regional reaching out is a good idea.
Anybody else? Yeah, and I would add, I think Cindy's, to her credit, is being careful here, because whether the county is or isn't involved now or later, and it could be an initiative that both need some county support, it's really an informational thing, but really focused on the economic development aspects and impact to the county for the presentations. Because, you know, when you look at the Blue Heron and North End, it's not just impacting Oregon City, it really ripples out all over the county and all around, and regarding taxes, jobs, and new growth. So that was my intent. And I'll clarify, disclose, I'm on the Summit team, but I'm not pushing the project. We're just saying, is it a good idea from an economic development standpoint? I will make sure everybody knows that I'm on the team, so I'm not pushing it. So great point, Cindy. I love that. Lynn.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to mention that I really agree with William on inviting all chambers, including our rural chambers. I think that's really important. I feel like sometimes they're not included in some activities, and I think they're really important to be there and hear from them.
And it just reinforces what I was just saying earlier, and Cindy was the Blue Heron and North End, again, it's rippling out. It's not just immediately in Oregon City if it was a small site with one building and one development. So I think they could feel connected through that, and then connected to our whole network. And I think we need to kind of strengthen the network and get everybody back together again. So other inputs, Laura, I see you kind of thinking there.
My hand's up, John.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just was curious because, to Lynn's point, the idea of being more inclusive, would you also consider inviting our culturally specific chambers of commerce into the event, as well as Greater Portland Inc. and Technology Association of Oregon or other associations?
That's a great idea. I mean, I think we in the economic development field know that it's the more the merrier to keep the network going. And there's so much cultural and historic and artistic and other things related to this. Maybe it is our Arts Alliance and a few others, and then get the big dogs in there, the GPIs and stuff. I have no problem with it. I know, Cindy, you think it's okay? It's really just getting everybody together. From your perspective, Cindy, if it would work?
I think let's hear feedback from all, and then we can maybe think. I see Eric's hand up too.
Eric, well, go ahead.
Thanks.
I just want to note that I'd be up for in-person meeting for sure, and then whatever forum is appropriate. If it needs to just be informational, then that's the best way to go. But yeah, just a support of an in-person gathering on my side.
Great. Others?
Laura's
So
hand up.
John, what's the intent? Okay, so let me ask this, and I apologize because my phone was blowing up for a second. What's the actual intent of this meeting? Is it just as a social hour? Or is it actually for us to, all of the partners to come together and share the concerns of for their region for economic vitality? And is this a Clackamas County specific conversation? Because, and I love incorporating and engaging other organizations and associations, but is it too much at one time? What is the actual focus of this event that you're talking
Cindy?
about?
Cindy, you want to take a shot at that one?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think if I'm understanding it correctly, in my mind at least, it was something similar to the event that we had in 2019, which was if this is going to be an EDC kind of involved process, we want to make sure that we are kind of aware of what the purpose is. And so I appreciate the question. I think if we had it focused on a business appreciation or networking type of event and had the recruitment side, I think that'd be great. If it was informational and we had a couple, maybe 2 or 3 topics that are economic development related activities happening in Clackamas County, I think that would be great. I have never seen us exclude anybody from any one of our events. And so certainly that door is wide open to anybody to attend. I do think a deeper dive and conversation about scope and scale is appropriate. Things like venue, things like revenue, do we charge for the event? Is it free? Like all of those things. I certainly appreciate the energy around the topic, around getting together in person. I feel like we would have to kind of talk this through a little more and get the scope and scale into something that, quite honestly, as staff, that we can support as well. We're a lean and mean team right now, and so I want to be aware of that as well. But certainly are supportive of wanting to advance this conversation, whether it's in the EDC meeting itself or in a networking event.
Yeah, Laura, I think some of the discussion in the executive committee it was a great event a couple, 3 years ago. A lot of people had said over the years it was great because we got together with other groups. We highlighted what we're all doing. And it may not be officially business appreciation because we all kind of been in the bunker and hibernating for 2 or 3 years, but to shine the light on the groups, so a little less maybe on the businesses, but then have some featured speakers that would be also a draw. And again, the thought was they were 2 big projects big enough that would be a draw for, like Eileen says, or as Lynn says, the rural groups as well. But yeah, and then it wouldn't shine the light just on EDC saying, oh, these 2 projects are here and it's kind of like we're supporting. That's not the case. It's not for support of the projects. It's more, hey, this is what's out there and let's learn from it,
Okay, because the way it was explained, I mean, the way I'm hearing it is that it's multiple things. So Cindy mentioned business, possible recruitment. So that's one thing. And then a social gathering and learning more about partners and their community and their services is completely something else. Businesses aren't going to come to that. So that's why I was hearing 2 different programs in my ears going, okay, those are completely unrelated. And if we're going to do economic development conversation, then we need to keep that program focused on economic development and keeping the scope tight. So that's why I just threw that in there, because again, it's great to hear what other people are doing and what their needs are, but I think they're completely 2 separate conversations.
Well, and the point about recruitment, and Cindy, correct me if it's different thinking from you, but I think what I've been hearing from the executive committee and in our discussion and then in the actual what happened last time was then a bunch of different business people hopefully would be there because there'd be enough of a draw. And the exposure to what we're doing maybe would be a chance for them to come and join up. You saw our list, it's shrunk over the pandemic. If we can get it back up to get some new folks in, that would be great. And it's not going to be the whole hour is going to be trying to recruit. It's just, here's what we do. Here's a list. You're more than welcome to contact Cindy and company to join up if you're interested. Here's how that would mechanically go, but not spend any time really on heavy recruitment. It's a subtle recruitment. Right?
William, hand up.
Yeah, John, you mentioned, you threw the word out an hour, but I don't know that an hour is going to be enough. I hope that was just a guideline perhaps, but I think the idea of, and Laura is spot on about having, there's two different tactics going on here. One is an awareness of the other of all the organizations in the county that are working towards improvement of economic climate. I think it's important that we don't look at this as just an EDC event. Right. I would hope that we could show this as a collaborative event coordinated with all of the organizations. And Cindy, your comment about, you know, all of our meetings are open to everybody, but that doesn't really necessarily, just because we're open to them attending doesn't mean that they are sitting at a, you know, some sort of an organizational table and we're all clear on what our goals are. But I think that the idea of business appreciation wouldn't fit into that model. I think that that's actually a separate event, a separate event regarding that. How we're going to fit in a couple of projects as informational doesn't, it seems a little almost artificial to throw that in there instead of highlighting what the organizations are and what they're doing. Frankly, I was, like I say, up till yesterday, almost unaware of the Happy Valley Business Alliance. You know, they didn't seem to be on anybody's radar, but I think that people ought to know that there are other organizations out there. I still bet there's a lot of people that don't know what the EDC is.
Well, and maybe it could be, and I appreciate all of your comments, and this was exactly what it was intended to be, was a kind of spaghetti at the wall conversation. And so I appreciate that there's a little bit of, not confusion, but just how do we define this event, right? So when I say business appreciation, it was only just in context to the one we did in 2019, because it was recruitment for members to the EDC. This could look totally different, you know, and I'm also thinking about, you know, how we could evolve this into almost more of an economic summit, if you will, that maybe is, you know, more of a 3/4 day thing. And maybe it's not the end of this year, maybe it's in the spring. And here's like all of the great activity that's happening across the county, and showcase it that way as more of a summit type of approach. Again, just throwing spaghetti on the wall here. And then focus this conversation around, you know, maybe the 2 catalytic projects that are, you know, in play right now, informational purposes only. That could be an approach. I don't think we're limited. It's just really gathering all the ideas today. I would love to hear from Vance and Chemo too, as part of the executive committee, kind of your thoughts coming out of our exec meeting and what you're hearing today.
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm not sure I want to go to your kitchen because there's apparently spaghetti all over the place.
Portable cook.
But I've heard a lot of good ideas today, but I kind of tend to agree with Laura in the sense that I think whatever we do, it needs to be focused. And I think it's clear that we probably need to be thinking more aggressively about recruitment and engagement of our existing board members and getting new ones. So, maybe there's a case to be made for perhaps not this year, because let's be honest, we're running out of time here to be creating a vibe and a buzz about an event that we haven't even decided what the event's going to be.
Right. Right.
So, I could say maybe this is something that a group of people take on for next year and say, and perhaps the end of the year thing is an actual presentation. Part of what we do is say, here, county commissioners, here's what we did, but maybe we expand that beyond and like you say, invite all the chambers and whomever we want to and say, this is our year-end event. Here's our body of work that we did this past year, you know, and we can use that as a recruitment tool, but to also show that we haven't just been sitting around on our thumbs all year. So, you know, the other aspect of it, you know, the informational parts, more information is always good, but I'm not sure that that's the best way to do those things. You know, maybe for specific projects like we're talking about here, because of the complexities with who's involved, you know, maybe the better approach is for the EDC to encourage those groups to host something and say, hey, we're hearing from people that they would love to know more about this. You know, what's the possibility that we could partner with you and maybe help promote something, but get them to do it so it's on their terms. And then we're just there in a supporting capacity.
Well, we're there as one of the 5, 10, 12 groups.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. That we're spread out with all the groups. So it's not just EDC, right? Chemo?
Yeah, I like that idea. I think obviously we would want to increase enrollment or activity within the EDC and start bringing in some future leaders as well. To do so, I think that, you know, you kind of have to have, you have to have the benefit statement of, you know, why you should join the EDC. And to piggyback off Vance, maybe it's an idea that we are out or tapping the chambers and other community organizations to maybe share what the EDC is doing. Maybe we can get a flyer or some sort of communication out to spark some interest with other individuals in the community. That's what I would work on, is just deepening our bench, because when I joined, I think there was, you know, 20 plus, and it's whittling down to just William here pretty soon.
Yeah, he represents 10 people at a time.
And he can handle it all.
Yeah. And also, I like the idea of us starting to set the stage for a more vibrant, robust 2023, whether we're meeting in person or not, but getting more folks involved. And if we all, those of you remember, we used to have some pretty big meetings. I mean, the room at the county was 30, 40 people, including affiliates folks just came and hang in there and want to see what's going on. So, oh, Lynn, I'm sorry.
John Lynn has
Lynn?
her hand up, and then Laura.
Okay, just real quick. I'm just thinking, as I'm listening to everyone, that this may take a little time to define and organize. So 23 looks, you know, maybe spring to 23 or around that time looks more feasible to me. And also, you know, if you're having an event, you're putting energy into it, you're organizing it, you know, also look at what would draw people to it. You know, I think we need to draw, and, you know, specific presenters may provide that or whatever, but I think we still need to define the event. You know, what is your goal for this event, and will it look like, and how long of an event will it be? So, you know, we have, you know, this year would give us time to put something together, I think, and whether you want to work, you know, as a committee or, you know, work with, you know, the main leaders, I don't know, but, you know, having time, and then there's the anxiety goes away, you know, you have time to put something that it'll be successful. You know, there'll be a lot of people, there will be some information shared, whatever you decide for that to look like.
Great point. And I think somebody made it earlier about what is the draw. I mean, if it's just us, different groups talking about economic development, our compadres would come, but is it a bigger thing for businesses? So Laura.
Okay, so love it. I love all the feedback, but when I think about another event, another gathering, another meeting, I have to ask myself is, what's the point of going? What is the desired outcome? Right. So we can have a meeting to have a meeting and get all like rosy feelings, but the thing is that if there's no outcome and no deliverables from this meeting, what is it? What's the intention? So I want to have a very fruitful engagement, but I have to have an outcome at the end of it. So for an EDC, we're holding meetings, and I love these conversations we're having because they're really helpful. So, but we're having presentations, but what are we doing with it? So it's great to hear about our workforce woes because we know that we have them and we're still suffering from them. It's great to hear about ag but what are we doing with it? So as an EDC, our role should, if we're sending off recommendations from the county commission, the board to act on, what are they acting on? So if we're providing feedback, what is it? And what's our intention here as an EDC? Because I want to be able to be impactful, and I want to be able to have energies put forth in a productive and fruitful way. And even with it, I love the idea of the back to two separate programs, not just one meeting. One's the social gathering and one's the actual business gathering. So what's the ROI for the people that are going to be in that room? Why am I there? As a business leader, what am I going to hear? And what is my engagement with the EDC? What's the evolution of that? Because as a business leader, I have to have an ROI. And I want to know that the time I'm putting on a committee is actually going to have an end result that I've impacted the outcome of something. And so sorry to throw that at you guys, but as we're looking at this, what is our intention here? And we can take it down to committee level to talk about what that event looks like and the keynote speaker that you're going to have, whatever. I don't want to get into the weeds. That's not what this meeting should be about. But what's the ROI?
I think all good input, because, we are all involved in groups and causes that have meetings after meetings after meetings. And I think a couple of things came out. One is I'm hearing from a couple of folks about meeting in person, and I'm a big meeting in person. So I think that's a good idea. And also to start getting us out from the basement, so to speak. Learning more about not only the groups, like I think William and a few others said they didn't know certain groups, but how are they, what are they doing, post-pandemic, are they coming out? And then coming up with something that would be the draw, that would be something that then, hey, I'm going to also learn about this. And I think Cindy keeps using the word informational, that is it. But I guess the question would be is if time-wise, because chemo's hitting it right on, we could do something bigger and at night and in person in October, then we need to get on it right away. If it's going to be shifted to maybe the first part of the spring when we kick off the new EDC year, we have a little more time, I think, as Lynn is saying.
We should still get on it right away.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment, just an observation from a new face in the crowd, that this conversation has been very robust, and it points to me that there is a need. I think the discussion and the spaghetti on the wall is what is exactly the need, but I think that, we've all articulated and imagined or discussed that there is clearly a need for hosting some kind of an event. And so I think that you're right on in terms of, okay, what is that going to be? But clearly there's discussion and there is a need to have some kind of an event. So I just want to encourage you in that regard.
So why don't we do this, knowing September's coming up quick, is we regroup as an executive committee just sooner than later and start to say, hey, what could or should we do for October? And if it's this event, let's put some meat on the bones. And if not, then keep working it for the beginning of the year and then fill something in for October that makes sense for all of us as we've been doing it with our regular meeting. Cindy, does that make sense?
I feel like we should still be, I don't feel like we're there yet. In my mind, I don't feel like we're there yet. I appreciate all the thoughts and the conversation. To Eileen's point, there's definitely energy around it, but I don't know that we're ready to say October is the time we're going to move forward with an event.
October is way too soon.
All right, well then before everybody leaves, we should shift what we want to do for October to fill in for the morning meeting, our regular meeting, right? While we're all together. So we could split some of the ones we had. We had Metro, UGB, Bridget, and Sunrise. We could shift one to October and
maybe
make that the feature.
I might suggest, Chair Lamont, that we talk to Bridget. Maybe Bridget can chime in for timing purposes and let us know what her preference would be, since we've already had conversations with her about presenting this year.
Hi. Yeah. Well, one, I believe I was asked to present on Future Ready Oregon, both where it's at across the state and awarding dollars and putting dollars out into the community, and also specifically what we're working on locally between us and at Clackamas Community College. We can do that in anything from 5 to 30 minutes. So however long you need for us to share information is totally open and totally on the table. And I would just say that it's not Bridget, it's workforce, where we want to talk about workforce development and workforce issues. And so to really hone in on that as the topic.
I will add to that to say, to Laura's point on how this ties back to county business, the Board of County Commissioners has made investments in CWP and supporting Future Ready Oregon. And so like that direct nexus is there for the EDC for this body of work. So that kind of goes back to the main mission and goals of the EDC, providing that feedback directly to the commissioners. And that's what I think having the Clackamas Workforce Partnership, not just Bridget, but the entire organization share both they're doing, has that direct link to the work of the EDC.
And I would also just add that even beyond Clackamas Workforce Partnership, it really is the public workforce system. WorkSource Oregon, Clackamas is a key umbrella program or suite of programs that have a lot to offer. And I think the takeaway message should be we are striving to coordinate a better service delivery system in response to the crises that we're in the midst of right now. And Future Ready is a catalyst to doing more of that stronger coordination between economic development, education and training, and support services.
Great. Well, I think, Cindy, I'm wondering if maybe to get into the weeds more after we're done, that you working with Bridget and Jamie just figure out who should be in what meeting time-wise and length of presentation. Because I think Bridget's got enough to talk about. Could be as we had the feature speaker, the UGB update might be short or long, depending on what you find. And I know that this Sunrise Corridor thing is going to get going. Jamie told me it's getting going soon, and it's big. It's a 3-year effort. It's going to be involving a lot of people, and it's hitting our biggest industrial area. So do you want to work behind the scenes to just figure out which one fits, and then we can lock it down time-wise?
How does that sound to the rest of the group? We're fine to do that perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think Cindy, with Jamie, I'd actually like to hear from her a full, not just on the one topic, but a perspective of all the projects and the scopes, because they all correlate and they all impact one another for cost, taxes, expense, right? So I think for Jamie, it would have a overall transportation overview, because then we remind ourselves about all the different things going on at the same time simultaneously that impact one another and our economy as a whole. So it would be good to have a high level overview.
And that is a great point, because I think, and I've been involved in this across the country, where there's so much focus on the transportation infrastructure and not what does it mean to our economy, even though it's there. But we could talk more in depth about that. That'd be great. So does everybody like that idea? We'll do that, and then the executive committee can then catch up and figure out about some sort of event. And maybe that is a kickoff in January, maybe not, but maybe it's spring. We can figure that out and go from there. And Stacia was on. I don't see her anymore. Stacia was on, so she's open to it, and we can do it whenever if we need that. So,
John,
great.
I think William's hand's still up.
Oh, William.
Again, not still. Thanks. Yeah, I agree with that plan, John. I think that's going to work out fine. I wanted to point out that although it was mentioned a couple of times that real estate was the focus of yesterday's OCBA forum, well attended and pretty spectacular presentations. This is the only chance I'm going to have before our next meeting to mention that next month's OCBA is going to be with Dr. Tim Cook from Clackamas Community College, talking about the future of education, which of course is near and dear to my heart. But when Bridget was talking about Clackamas College, I think that we're going to have a very different spin from with Dr. Tim about education, which I will never give up on.
Well, and Bridget, I tell you, I ran into a worker staff shortage yesterday. I had an urgent need to get into a bank to talk about my mother's situation with her banking. And the door was locked. The sign on the door said we're temporarily closed. I came back the next day, same thing, but luckily at lunch, one of the bankers let me in and he says, we're so short staffed. And this is a Chase Bank, a big bank, that we have to close down big chunks of time all day or throughout the midday. So it's really crazy. So Bridget, thank you for pushing all this good stuff.
Well, and what I would say to that is there's a lot of reality that's going to be our new normal. And so we do have to together be much more strategic about how we're investing and supporting the talent in our communities now, because if we don't have enough people to take on all these jobs, how we develop, especially for important industries like construction and the trades and healthcare, we can't afford to not have those be robustly built. So I really think it's much more of a discussion and like, how are we going to plan differently across that? And I think that's where the EDC has a lot of leadership and can provide a lot of insight and support.
Well, okay. Eileen, Cindy, Karina, anything we missed?
I have one more thing, and it's just as more of a put it on everyone's radar. Those of us on the exec, and actually everyone should know that we're going to be looking for officers for next year for the EDC, and it's not too early to be thinking about that because John's just in there on a temporary basis. So, and I will be going off the exec committee, so it's time for everyone else to step up, do your part.
I got called in from the bullpen. So
yeah.
We need some starting pitchers. Okay, that's a great point. Thank you, Vance. That gets it in the minds for the next round here. So, and Chemo's point about we went from 20-ish to down to where we are, and it's just a factor of where we're at. We're doing as best we can, but I think we can pop it again come 2023. So thank you, everybody. Have a good day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you later. Bye.
Thank you all.